It requires an assumption, but it's not proof.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
This is not proof at all.
The easiest assumption is that there is a beginning to time, and we have no reason to doubt that at this time.
I would argue that mathematically, but I would most certainly argue that mathematically. I mean, all space-time really is a mathematical model for what we perceive as the universe, manifolding the dimension and time along the three-dimensional axis of space. That's all it is. We could pick that point where we decided T0 is at any time because, I mean, well, okay, so maybe trying to envision space-time is going to break your brain because it tries to break mine every day when I try it, but that's semantics. Really, the point is you can adjust the axis at any point and say, T0 is this time.
Well,
I'm not sure how that eliminates T0.
right. What she's saying is regardless of when T0 was, T0 was. Does that make sense?
It requires a leap of faith to like believe that though.
Why?
Believe that time started?
Yeah, because you can't prove that it did or didn't start at that point.
Exactly. I'm not saying like you're saying that. I'm saying that there is a doubt to that point, at least from what I've been able to see, because we don't have all of the evidence. We don't know how dark matter and dark energy act, how antimatter really works itself out, and we might not in 100,000 years or so, assuming we'll still be existing.
Considering dark matter and dark energy make up like 96% of the universe.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
But if
we don't even know
anything about them, what we know about them, if we don't know much about it, it's kind of a big deal to stake so much on something we don't understand yet. So from what we understand, time having a beginning is the most logical explanation.
Right on.
Mathematically, it's good for physical calculations. I'm just saying, all I'm really arguing is that in order to do the mathematics, in order to do computations as we do it today, you have to make that assumption, but that does not necessarily mean that it is the correct assumption. It just means that it's there. It still is a leap of faith to say that because we have no proof or disproof of it. It's just something we decided.
So, okay, I see what you're saying, but that doesn't really say one way or the other.
Exactly.
I mean, at the moment, it's completely...
I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Time started.
My point, the entire point of that diatribe was to say that there is doubt.
I mean, I'm not saying this is completely 100%. I'm just saying that it's more reasonable than not from what we know right now.
Again,
if things change, then maybe we'll have to change this, but we don't know if how knowing more about dark matter will change what we understand about the universe.
No, we don't.
So we have to go with what we have now and learn more as we learn more about it.
That doesn't really make sense to me. Cause like, people before they knew the world was round, like they looked out and this is what they could see, this was the proof they had, the world looked flat.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that wasn't like correct though.
Yeah, but
that wasn't correct. They operate on an assumption.
We don't know yet whether or not
the
assumption is a right one or a wrong one. So we can't assume that it's wrong just because it's what we perceive now.
No, we can assume it's an assumption.
So we can, this isn't really going either way right now.
Right.
That was my
You're arguing with agnostics.
Why are we still talking about this? Okay.
Because I'm arguing doubt versus certitude. That is my entire purpose.
I'm saying that this is reasonable. I'm not saying that it's completely beyond question.
True. Let's talk about the universe having a cause then.
No! That is a huge non-sequitur and I'll be back into space-time.
Okay, tell me why it's a non-sequitur.
I already explained to you why this is a non-sequitur.
For the special people, can you define non-sequitur?
Yeah.
Non-sequitur would mean that this does not follow from those two. So non-sequitur is saying because the sky is blue, there's a llama in my backyard. That would be a non-sequitur.
No, that's true.
In Indiana, totally possible.
Have you seen llama wings?
No, I've seen llama farm.
Rumble teapot.
In Monticello, they do llama weed and they dress the llamas up in costumes. Really cool.
Okay.
That's where the universe started.
We digress.
Look, I explained why it was a non sequitur because we can't say for certain right now whatever begins to exist in time has a cause, or even the universe began to exist. We have an idea of something in our limited perception, but that's not that's not really anything. It does not follow absolutely that the universe necessarily had to have a cause. We assume that, essentially we're assuming is, question. At time 0, you assume that there was no matter or anything, Big Bang, bam, universe.
Or that there was an infinitely dense point that arose from somewhere.
Well, yeah, that is, thank you, because that's the actual explanation. But where did it
then
arise from?
That's the question.
Exactly. Now, the thing is, you have to say that it arose to begin with, and we don't know if it arose, if it didn't arose, if it just sat there, if God just decided to blow out a candle and all of a sudden, bam, infinite mass density. I mean, could happen. I don't know.
Right.
And the reason I'm saying it's a non sequitur is because the argument is saying we don't know, therefore it had to have a cause.
I'm not saying
That
we
does
don't
not
know.
follow.
Based on what we do know, this is completely reasonable.
That
But
does
we
not.
don't know that what we know right now will change in the future. It may or it may not. If it does change, then we'll have to come up with other things. But based on what we know now, this is completely reasonable.
I would argue that it would be more reasonable to say that this is what it appears to be, but we do not, but to have the clause, we do not know, we have not essentially studied all of the normatives. Essentially, I think it's somewhat reasonable from our frame of reference, but when you change the frames of reference to universal system, looking at, I suppose, if you change the frame of reference from limited human perspective to limited human perspective attempting to try and go for a universal look, or even a quantum look, it does seem to be a bit, well, there's a lot of uncertainty in this. It's a kind of an assumption to make when it comes right down to it. There's too many unknowns. There's too many things that may or may not be, is what I'm trying to point out.
Okay, what?
What I would say with one, that assumption holds for going from one unit of time to another unit of time. But when we're talking about the universe beginning to exist, we're sort of talking about time beginning to exist. I mean, that's what we. So we're going from lack of time to time. I don't think we're holding one to be true from a given time to another given time, not from lack of time to time.
So, to summarize, you're saying that we don't know that at the beginning of time things needed causes?
No, I mean, but I'm just saying you're creating a logical proof, 1, 2, and then 3, and I'm saying 1 doesn't apply to the beginning of the universe because at the beginning of the universe we're going from lack of time to time, whereas we're showing 1 to be true, we're assuming 1 to be true based off of we're going from some definite point in time to some other definite point in time.
But if we have matter there in time that is something, and from that instant we can apply these laws, and we need a cause for that.
Yeah, but we're going from one state of matter in time to another state of matter in time, and with 2, that's not actually the case. It's existence of time, rather. We're not going from different states, from one state to another. We're going from...
I'm not sure how that fits in with the need for a cause.
I'm just saying the argument doesn't fall. Step 1 doesn't, 1 and 2 don't fall from 3. I'm not saying I know what the answer is. I'm just pointing that out.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the issue is time. When we talk about the universe beginning to exist, that includes time beginning to exist at the same time. So time being a part of the universe, if the universe began to exist, and time is a part of the universe, then time also began to exist. So you don't have a problem of it changing from no time to time. It's not a problem. It's just what happened. Time was started at a point. So in the same way that matter was started at a point. That's the argument too. So the first one says whatever begins to exist. I don't know if you need the in time there to the beginning, but
begins implies time, but just for clarity.
right. So whatever begins to exist. So if time began to exist and matter began to exist, it has a cause. The second argument being the universe has a cause. So we said that time and matter exist. They began to exist, regardless of when T0 is. They did at some point come into existence. And since they began to exist, then the third statement follows. They had to have a cause. Does that make sense?
Again, I don't see how it refutes my previous
Matter is
point,
alive.
but
because it creates an entire new set of, it follows right back into your argument of the idea of, even if time and matter came into existence at the same point, what about t negative 1?
There can't be a t negative 1.
Yeah, there can. How?
It's non-time.
Not from a mathematical standpoint. Again, you do this, if I just simplify into a linear system of the subspace of